Hey there, you're listening to Your Life is Awesome, featuring true life stories about sex told by audience members at Smutslams around the world. Smutslam is a growing network of dirty storytelling shows founded in 2011 by me, Cameron Moore. We do our best to keep Smutslam safe, but safe doesn't mean G-rated. Some of these stories are explicit as fuck. If you're not into that, now is a good time to get out. Otherwise, enjoy the show. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Your Life is Awesome. I'm your host. I'm your founder. My name's Cameron Moore. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm so excited to be here with you to let you know about what's happening on this next episode. If this is not your first time with us, if you're returning to us, we're so happy to have you back. Thanks for being here. And if this is your first time with us, if this is your first time listening to Your Life is Awesome, wow, good choice. We applaud you. Yay. Welcome. You're going to have a good time because we bring you fresh, hot, filthy stories from around the world every single episode of Your Life is Awesome. This particular episode, we are happy to be bringing you a bunch of good stuff from Copenhagen. We recorded in April 2025 at Rådhuset. The theme was origin stories, and what I was trying to do when I picked that particular theme with the help of my Copenhagen admin team was getting at some of the things that make us who we are sexually. There were a lot of coming out stories, first cruising experiences, playing around with household surrogates for lube. Anyway, some of these are quite formative events for how we move forward sexually. So that was kind of what I was getting at with the theme, origin stories. And wow, yeah, good times. As usual at Smutslams, we intersperse the stories with a little bit of fuck buckets. So if you don't know what fuck buckets is, it's basically just the anonymous questions and confessions that we bring in from the audience. We figure there's always more that people want to know. There's always shy people who want to share something but don't feel like they can do it from the microphone. So the fuck buckets allow us to do that. So that's going to be all kinds of educational stuff and ridiculous stuff and really heartfelt stuff coming from audience members. And that's my favorite part of the show, I'll be honest with you. So you're going to get those fuck buckets in buckets, basically, just buckets of fuck buckets. That's what happens at Copenhagen and all of our smut slams. People really love that. All right. So thank you for all the tellers on this episode for giving us permission to share their stories from the show. Settle in, get comfy, get yourself a drink or something, and we will see you on the other side. I went to a rope jam yesterday where I learned that you can use a coiled up standard 8-meter shibari rope as a flogger using the loose end and a deep impact tool using the curled up end. Wow, I was the bottom. Double hearts, blushing emoji. Aww, you're like, can I get a Your Life is Awesome 1, 2, 3? Your life is awesome. Yeah. Normally I don't choreograph that. Like, you're allowed to. That doesn't count for your 1 or 2 uses. That was me going, I want the whole room to say it.
What I want to share is my sexual experience, which happened years ago in Croatia when I was still in the closet. Like years ago. And I was around 19. And of course, I just discovered Gay Romeo back then in Croatia was really popular. He was already Grindr, but it's Balkan, so use what you have. And of course, I was like the profile without a picture. And I was working summer season. First shift, I was done, and I was like, okay, let's do a bit of date. And remember, I was 19, back in Croatia, rural area, so my sexual experience is like really short by that time. Unexperienced, priest, uncle, and I'm joking, of course. Oh God. And anyway, like I went to the date with a guy who's also Balkan but lives in Vienna. And he came there for a couple of weeks and we planned it really nicely. We were like, we are going to have a drink and then we will see, do we feel any kind of chemistry, and it's gonna help, like. So of course, like I felt chemistry from the first moment. Yeah. So I was like waiting to finish that drink and to stop in some kind of wood, like, and hope the car is not too heated to sit on it. Anyway, meanwhile, while we were having that drink, he shared a bit of his life story, and I shared a bit of his story, which I, of course, was thinking I forgot. And then we, of course, finished the drink. We were riding. He was taking me back home with the car. I was not driving back then. And we stopped, but thanks God, in some kind of forest. And we started doing things, kissing. And in a moment, I put my hand in his pants. And I found some massive thing. Like, first time I see it as big as it is. And the thing was, it was my first time to see uncut dick, like. So I was holding it in my hand. I was like, and he was like, are you gonna do something with it, or are you just gonna stare? And I was like, I'm sorry, are you a Muslim? And he was like, because in my head I was connected right away to Muslims, like, and he was like, yeah. I was like, that's fine, but I just don't know where to put this thing, like what I'm supposed to do with it. Of course, I discovered a year later, that night, nothing did happen because I was like incapable to even try. But yeah, but we did a bit of kissing and fingers and things like that. So fast forward, it was 4 years ago. And COVID hit. Back then I lived in Dublin. So I went back home to Croatia after 12 years to see is it safe to to be gay there now. And it is, thank God, it's much better. It's much better, that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm here. And like, anyway, I was bored. And I went on a grinder this time. And the guy texted me, of course, faceless, like we all are in Croatia. And he texted me like, would I like to go on a date? And I was sure, like, but let's chat a bit, like just to feel the vibe. And he was like, explain me, he's from Vienna. I was like, this sounds familiar. This sounds familiar. So I was like, I think we went on a date. He was like, really? I was like, yeah, like 11, 10, 12 years ago. I'm not sure. He was like, I don't remember, but let's repeat it. Maybe I'll remember it. So, of course, I didn't remember the face. I remember the dick. Yeah. So he picked me up. We went to the beach, some kind of forest, of course, because now one in Croatia has this place. Yeah. So it's always some kind of beaches or things like that. And anyway, we start kissing. We start doing everything. Put down his pants, and I was like, this is not the same dick as I remember. Much smaller. It wasn't cut, but still. And I was like, when you're little, everything seems bigger. Or I, grow, stretched, whatever. So I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. I'm going to do it this time. Like, I can handle this. And eventually we did it. And we started talking. And I remember what he was saying to me back on a date. And I was like, he was telling me his mom was really sick and has a cancer. He's a doctor who tries to help her any kind of way. And I was like, how is your mom doing? And he was like, how do you know about that? I was like, he told me the first time when we went on a date. He was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And you told me you're a doctor, you're trying to help her. And he was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, sorry, did I went too far with the question? And he was like, no, it's not that. And I was like, what is it? Well, I'm not a doctor. I was like, what you are? And he was like, auto mechanic. I was like, why did you tell me you were a doctor? And he was like, it wasn't me. It was my twin brother. Yeah. It was my twin brother. So my only question is, where is your dad so I can fuck whole family? Yeah, like, thank you guys.
Wow.
I really was like mystified. I was really like, what's going on? Also, isn't that funny? Like, if you're in a culture where uncut dick is a rarity, you're like it. Okay, so for me, it wasn't that it was a rarity. It was just I was always so drunk before with dudes that I never really paid attention. The first time I looked at an uncut dick sober, I was like. Wow. I legitimately was like, tap, tap, tap. What happens here? And then I saw what happens, and it's all very normal and fine. But in the beginning, I was seriously like flabbergasted. So, the human body is a beautiful thing. I want to also just mention, because you caught yourself with joking about the priest and the uncle, right? I want to remind you that jokes told on the stand are still included, like as part of the educational moment. Even if you're just joking, it's like you want to be thinking about like the uncle. Oh, I'm not even going to repeat that part, but like just generally, like people tend to want to. If they're feeling nervous sometimes, right? You'll be like making a joke about something or repeating a stereotype about something. And even though it's a joke, it still counts for what you're doing up in the microphone. So I want to mention that. Although priests, is priest a big thing there? For you it was. Yeah. I very rarely feel horny on my own these days. It almost exclusively happens in situations with other people where we're getting it on. Compared to earlier periods when I would masturbate multiple times a week, it's definitely a change I don't necessarily mind, but I do wonder what brought it on and whether it's temporary or more like my new normal. Without any other context, I will say that libido can ebb and flow for anybody of any age or gender. It can happen as a result of life stresses. It can happen as like, we are all in dystopia. That's a very stressful thing. It can happen like that for anybody. You can, sometimes it's based on like there's depression or something else going on. If you're concerned, it doesn't sound like you are. If you ever find yourself in something like this and you're really concerned, like talk to a doctor, and you can get that or try to get that sorted out. I will say, I also have found myself in that same position, and it's called, the kind of horny that you're talking about is like responsive arousal. It's responsive, okay? So by that, it's like if someone starts getting like hot and sexy at me, I will respond to that, but I rarely have it self-initiating. So I'm rarely like leading with that. And that's not me being lazy. It's just like that's the way my arousal wants to be. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. What brought it on, only you can tell. If it's more like your new normal, there's lots of people in that. It's not necessarily a problem. It's just a thing. But it is worth talking about with a doctor or a therapist if it's worrying you. So you're good. You're fine. You are fine.
So on the theme, the origins, and I thought it was the origins of kink. Something that sort of like followed me as a cis gay man. I've always been curious about the public sex that comes along with, so almost inherently with being a gay man. Well, not just in being a gay man, I think, just men in general, I think will have, I don't know about ladies, I don't know how, but in parks and things, I mean, sometimes it is out of necessity, okay? Because in places, I know we've had conversations where like, you have to be in a car or whatever, with the situation. The one time I did end up in a car because of that, I was living with my parents and things, and he didn't have a place to go, and he had clearly done it before, and things were uncomfortable in the car, so he suggested we get out of the car. Of course, it's terrified if the police do come by. What he said, it's okay. We just say we're walking the dog. Which apparently that is the origin of the term dogging. Did you know that? That's what the police say. Like, the people say, well, I'm just walking the dog. But we don't have a dog with us, so we're not walking the dog. We've lost the dog, is what the thing is. That was confusing to me because so we get out of the car, the police come by, and we have to go, Fido, fight, like we will look around. And then we just give up looking for the dog. Oh well, and get back in the car. So it was ridiculous, and I hated it, and it wasn't for me. And then of course there's public sex, which of course is in a park, which in Copenhagen is very popular, and so popular they do have the little birdhouses now with the lube and the condoms in, which is did you know that they do this? I thought it was it did make me feel a bit more okay. It's a bit more sort of, I don't know, legitimate, but I'm just uncomfortable with the public nature of it, I think. And so thankfully I met a guy who pretty sexy, and even through the dark I could tell we could have a good time, and I was cold and uncomfortable, and I asked if we could go back to his place, maybe, and I couldn't go back to my place. I had a boyfriend, but we hadn't had the discussion, but we ended back at his place, and he there unleashed his kink. And it's a 3-in-1 kink story, this, because he was really into, and I've never experienced this in all my days, I don't know if it's kink shaming this, I hope it isn't, it's squeezing your balls, right, so they're sort of really separate, and then hitting them, or having someone hit them as hard as you can, and I couldn't, I tried it. I gave it a go. I'm down for trying stuff. But and because spanking's fantastic. I like that's great. But your ass can take a lot more in other places. But balls, I don't know if anyone, are we allowed to ask that if anyone's actually experienced this before? But it just felt it wasn't for me. I don't want children. That's not true. I don't want children. I don't want children that way. So the worst part was, the biggest crime was, he had a terrific penis, and I was really looking forward to having fantastic, just anal sex with him, was the bottom sort of thing, then the worst part was that he clearly didn't go to one of the birdhouses. We had condoms. We didn't have any lube. And we ended up in the kitchen. And I know that it is the number one rule. You don't use the oil-based lubes with condoms, because that is what I was always told. So I was like, no, not the oil. And all he had was butter. Lurpak, Danish butter. And I swear to God, you guys, the smell as things heated up, delicious, really, really. And so I may not have developed a ball or even public sex fetish, but maybe next time I'm in a bakery, I'll, if you see one of those, a grin on my face. Anyway, yeah, that was, I'm curious to know if anyone knows about the ball thing, or if anyone's into public sex. I want to figure that out, okay? Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Toasted butt grease, yes. That's fantastic. I also have complicated feelings, okay? I once went to a Tantra workshop where we got oiled up, naked, sat 2 and 2 very closely, pretending to be cosmic seaweed for 3 hours. I'm very conflicted how I feel about this memory. Sometimes I hear stuff like this, and I'm like, how do I ever feel imposter feelings at all, right? When shit like this is out in the world getting money. Cosmic seaweed. Yeah.
When I was around 13 years old, I had a best friend. He was this tall, blonde musician boy. And at one point I was in class and I was looking at him, and there was this ray of sunlight falling down on his face. And I just thought to myself, God, you're beautiful. Wow, you are the most beautiful thing I've ever looked at. And I had to look away, and I felt super uncomfortable in my own body, but I just couldn't stop thinking about him in a new way. And that's when I started fantasizing about talking to him and telling him that I think I might be gay. And then he would look deeply into my eyes and he would say, "So am I." And we'd hold each other's hand and we'd run across the field and we'd be happy forever. And so over the next half year of just fantasizing and obsessing and thinking about my best friend, I finally built up the courage and I downed a 6-pack of Easter Bork, and I finally told him that I'm gay, and he was so cool and so supportive. And then he went down to get a super sweet girlfriend, and I was devastated. But by then I was out of the closet, and everyone thought that I was super cool because I was 13 years old and I was openly gay. But for me, being 13 years old and gay was just incredibly lonely. I was gay, single, and ready to mingle, and there was just no one at the receiving end. All my friends, they were running around, messing around, falling in love, breaking up, breaking each other's hearts. And whenever I met a boy and I was like, he's nice to me, there might be a chance. And I built up the courage and I tried moving a little towards him, and he'd be totally straight and there was no chance, and I was just alone in the world. But then I discovered a wonderful page called Boyfriend. And at Boyfriend, there was ample opportunities for a super horny, super open, super kinky boy to explore his fantasies. So while all my friends were falling in love, I was biking around the neighborhood, meeting up with daddies in their garages and getting used and abused. And it was all super good experiences. They were caring daddies, and there were lots of them. But they were just extremely mature and extremely not at like my level of sexual development. And by the time my peers started coming out of the closet and started being interested in opening me, they were like really excited about being led on or being shown the way by this experience, and I come across as somewhat straight acting, so they wanted me to top them. But I just wanted to be held and be the little guy, and I wanted to be topped. So at this point, where I just kept returning to the daddies online, I started to thinking to myself, that's just what I'm into. All I care about, all I get turned on by is having kinky, submissive sex with daddies, with mature guys. I'm just not into boys my own age. And that seed was sort of planted super deeply. And I carried it with me throughout my life of never really daring to hook up with boys my age until 3 weeks ago. I met a really nice, tall, handsome, my age, blondish boy, and we just had vanilla, pure, same kind of energy sex, and it was all I ever dreamed of, and that was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, that was the resolution to that story that I needed. I'm like, yes. What is it? What was it you said? Like my own age? Like as an ad? What is that? Like peer appropriate? Like peer? An age doesn't matter. I'm glad you got it. Oh dear, I have had an on-off affair with an employee at my son's kindergarten. Honesty now. Honesty, right? Woo! Yeah. No one will know. There are only 4. They know, and they probably think you're weird. Okay. Oh, no. I've never tried flavored condoms. The only thing close to flavor I got to try was honey on the dick and the butthole. I have to say, most flavored condoms, I don't find that convincing in any way. Okay? So I don't think you're missing much there. I want to encourage you to be careful with honey on the dick, especially if you're going to be putting it into anyone later. I don't know about the butt, but I do feel like even honey in the butt might be a problem, right? Or it's less a problem than the vagina, because vagina definitely is going to pick that up and run with it, and you're going to get a yeast infection from that. In the butt, it's just going to be sticky. But then you can use butter, and then it would be like a butter honey flavor. Honey butter is a nice flavor, right? That's yummy.
Origin story. This is going to be an origin story of the G-spot. So, it all begins long time ago in a place that is very terrifying called Texas. And I was rather young, and I was very lucky to have parents that were very much the, if you're going to do it in the house type of people. So, I had my first boyfriend when I was about 17. And poor thing, looking back now and being in Denmark, I mean, I think I made him wait 2 months even for a kiss. Is that like even a concept in Denmark? Like, is it? Okay. Because, wow. Our Netflix and chill back in the day, I was lucky enough to have a TV in my room, and Netflix was a thing. And now every time I hear the How I Met Your Mother theme song, oh, it's awful. Anyway, so that was, yes. And there was a lot of finger blasting to the How I Met Your Mother theme song way back in the day. Just saying, isn't that wonderful? But also kind of awful. That's all we would do because Lord. So that was the only base he ever got to for like a year and a half. And then I broke up with him. Fast forward a long time. I've had one other boyfriend, and then I've gone into the wonderful world of Copenhagen. And I was a tourist here while I was on study abroad, and I fell in love with it because it's so safe and people seem so open and happy. For the most part, I mean, mostly I focused on the safety and also like the pastries. And I was only here for like 28 hours and it was lovely. And I eventually moved here, obviously, and had many more experiences since then, which is lovely. But we're going to go back to the G-spot. So I think I'm just going to culturally say, because there isn't that thing of slowing down, there's a tendency to just get to the point. And so I also, fun fact, had never had an orgasm until last fall. Which was lovely. And that was after one of my first performances as burlesque, and I spoke about that very quickly last time. So just to say, all of my friends were like, you've never had an orgasm? Like, girl, get into it, like, get on top and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm trying, but I can't figure it out. And everyone moves so quickly here. And I was like, and I'm the giver. Ha If anyone knows that Chapel Roan song, yeah, thank you. That was what I was trying to say. Anyway, so I had this lovely date, where it was like we saw the fireworks in Tivoli and blah, 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 and we somewhat communicated. By that I mean, like, we actually somewhat had a date in Tivoli where we had a beer and then went to fireworks. It was lovely. And then it was just lovely. This is the first orgasm story of, like, hitting the G-spot at the exact thing, and I was like, boy, you are a God, like, you are a king, you have natural ability. And he was like, oh no, I've practiced this for a long ass time, and this is not natural ability, but I think it was. And anyway, he ended up ghosting me. It was very sad. I know. And I'm still learning to communicate myself in this world where everyone moves so quickly and blah, blah, blah. But I'm about to turn 30, and hopefully, I've heard when you're in your 30s, you kind of figure it out a little bit more. I hope that's true. So I'll see what has to happen, and that my G-spot is probably actually the key, which is really cool. And now I kind of know that. So we'll see where my origin story takes me.
Yeah! I am such a fan. I am such a fan of the fact that when you said, like, yeah, I think I hear my 30s are gonna be like, I can figure it out then. I mean, I've had some of my best realizations in my mid to late 40s, to be honest. Okay, so for people is this a moving target, I guess is what I'm wondering. Okay, round of applause. Your best sexual kind of experience or development or realization. Your best sexual realization about yourself. Was it last year? 5 years ago? Within the last 5 years? Within the last 10 years? Okay, so discovery is going to happen over a broad range of your life. Do not get hung up on, like, the best sex I'm going to have is going to be in my 30s. You don't fucking know that. Sometimes the 40s can wander along. And the problem, too, right, with, like, saying 30s or saying any age group, right, is that it starts to set expectations for other people, and they get worried about it. Like, am I behind? Because they're talking about, like, G-spot stuff in the 30s, but I'm like 52. What if I never had that? Like, it all happens when it happens. Don't worry about it. Enjoy the journey. God bless human sexuality. You are so currently setting up a role play date where I dress up as a Viking savior. I have to fuck to my date and a huge dragon dildo to save the planet. So I'm not really a visually oriented person when it comes to porn, but I want to see the photo shoot of that. Yeah. So I had my first kink fantasy in kindergarten, and looking back, that fantasy was the first clue that I'm way too subby. 2 is judgy, but okay. So in the fantasy, I'm being led into a kitchen where I'm being prepped as a dish, naked sushi style, to be served to a room full of hungry men ready to devour my body. New kink unlocked at the tender age of 5. People find out in the same way they find out, like, they might be a gender different than what everyone else thinks. They might be queer. People find out these things. Yeah. Just as you can be, like, any age, it's like, really, you can be any age. The human imagination is, oh dear, oh God. Okay, so you know what I said about, like, Smut Slam can be a roller coaster? It's rarely the stories themselves that are the roller coasters. It's the fuck bucket, all right?
This is a story back from my formative years, back in, what do we call it? In Denmark, we have something called an efterskole. It's sort of like a boarding school, for those who don't know, but it's the last 2 years of your public school. Or it can be. In my case, this is where I met my first real girlfriend. For some context, the way she introduced herself to me was by going out of the bathroom and flashing me. So now you have an idea of what kind of woman this was. I don't really have time to talk about our first time, it's a story in and of itself, but This is a story of how I sort of discovered my love for bondage. Because while she was way more experienced than I was, we were also both very explorative. We loved to try new things, and we started tying each other up in her bedroom, campus. She had a roommate, so it had to be when the roommate was out, which kind of added to the kink. And I think the moment where I fell in love with the bondage was, I remember it clearly because it's seared into my brain. We discovered that above her bed was this long I-beam. And of course we were very creative what we were tying each other with, but we found something that was long enough, I don't remember if it was a sheet or whatever it was, but it was long enough to go around the I-beam and down. So I had her tied up, her hands up, and I just remember the moment because she was blindfolded, she was tied, and this was a very assertive woman. But in this one particular moment, she was so vulnerable, so trusting, and because she knew if a roommate came in, the roommate had a key, we had to be very fast getting her down if anything went wrong. So I just remember that moment, the love, the trust, the feeling of she trusted me 100% in that moment, and I found that really beautiful. And I think that sort of cemented my love for bondage and what it can do. And yeah, that moment will probably forever be seared into my brain. How she looked and the feelings that it evoked. And that's just what I want to say. It's a short story.
My wish for my 30th birthday. My wish for my 30th. Do I really want to read this? This feels like a real giveaway, but you put it in, so okay. My wish for my 30th birthday is to spend 24 hours in a sex dungeon and have my partner and anyone invited to use and play with me in teams for the whole duration of the stay. I'll come to SmutSlam and tell the story when it's happened. All right. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes at SmutSlam. You know, we get those questions coming in from people. They really want to know what is going on. They really want to know how to flirt with people, how to do this, how to have tough conversations with people. And that is one of my favorite parts of doing SmutSlam is the chance for us to talk as a room full of people. We don't all know what we're doing. Most of us don't know what we're doing, but as a crowdsourcing sort of exercise about what do we know and how can we share it with each other. The fuck buckets and the educational action, the information services that come from the fuck bucket are always outstanding. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And I want to give a special shout out to my admin team in Copenhagen who don't only choose the themes there. They do all the organizing and outreach and word of mouth marketing, finding the judges. All of my admin teams everywhere are spectacular. In Copenhagen, that is Anna, Stevie T, and Anya from Damask, which is our prize sponsor there in Copenhagen. So thanks, you guys. You're great. You keep me upright. I swear to God. Anyway, if you are really enjoying this show and you're thinking, I would like this more in my podcast app, you want to make sure to give us a boost on our Patreon. This is how we produce this thing. This stuff doesn't just roll out unfiltered from the microphones. We go through this. We spend time on this. We need your support to keep Your Life is Awesome going as a podcast. If you join us on the Patreon, there's a whole archive of extended episodes to enjoy with more stories and fuck buckets that never made it into our regular episodes. Plus, you get to listen to the regular episodes of Your Life is Awesome. You get to listen early. All right. So go to patreon.com/Your Life is Awesome and join our little Smutty Pals Club. All right. Get in on that action. I want to mention also where you can get in on the live action at SmutSlam because we are still going. Our summer schedule is a little bit lighter, but not by much, to be honest. We still have stuff going on all over the damn place. So I want to let you know where things are happening in the next few weeks so you can kind of pin that on your calendar. And if you're in these locations, you should go check us out. And if you're not, you should let your friends know. Okay, so here's what we got coming up for the next little bit. We've got Baltimore on June 20th with Diva Darling hosting that. Oh, she's so darling. In Leeds on June 20th, I'll be hosting that. First time ever out at the Flamingos Coffee House. We've got a slam in Brighton on the 23rd. I say we, that's a royal we. I am doing that. I'm hosting the slam in Brighton on Monday, June 23rd. And then when I get back to Germany, I'll be going to Heidelberg on June 27th and Mannheim on June 28th. Over in Amsterdam, Busty Latish is hosting the season finale over there on June 29th. And let's see, Boston is coming in on the first Tuesday of the month with host Victor Victrola on July 1st. So bam, start your July off with a real whizzer of a show. Woo! Now, I want to mention also in July, the Berlin Smut Slam admin team, we are taking a small contingent over to the Pinky Promise Festival at a castle, at a castle in Germany. That festival sold out a long time ago, but it's just something to keep an eye out for. If you happen to be going there, look for us at Smut Slam. It's a small festival right now, so you can definitely find us. We're going to be doing a special Smut Slam on Saturday afternoon there. For everything else, anything upcoming, you want to look on the Smut Slam website, smutslam.com. Look on our events page, and that's where you're going to see it all. All of those have ticket links ready to go. All right. Thanks for joining us for this episode. We hope we're going to see you out there at one of the live slams. If you can make it, send your friends, tell them to come listen to us here in the podcast, and whatever else you do, stay safe, stay sexy, and remember, your life is awesome.
This has been Your Life is Awesome, a story podcast from Smutslam with Cameron Moore. Produced by me, Marc Seistedt. Music by Sticky Biscuits. A huge thank you to all storytellers featured. All stories are being shared with permission. If you want to help us make more of these, plus get access to longer episodes and other bonus material, please join our Patreon at patreon.com. Your Life is Awesome. If that's not in the cards right now, you can also help by rating and reviewing this show. Look for that option in your podcast app. We might read out some reviews on a future episode. Got a question for Cameron? Write or send a voice recording to smutslampodcast@gmail.com. This too might be featured on the podcast. And if you want to find out more about Smutslam and the code of conduct we use in the shows, go to smutslam.com. All links mentioned can be found in the podcast info. Thanks for listening.